Good afternoon,
Hello,
everybody.
everyone.
Roland,
Nice
I'll let you
timing there,
kick off.
Derek.
Yeah, I'll let you kick off.
Well, I see you're still charging, so I better not interrupt your charger, right? All right, everyone. Thank you so much this afternoon for joining us on the live broadcast to get an update on the state of the network. Today, we have with us speakers from Ionity, from eCars, from EasyGo, as well as our Tesla owners community in Ireland. So this will be a great session to get some updates from them. And it's also a great opportunity for you to interact, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn, or whether you're on YouTube. Leave a comment and ask questions. We will take those as well towards the end of the session, where we start to have a panel discussion as well with our speakers. And of course, I don't want to exclude our Simon, who will be giving a bit of an update on how to charge and what the best practices would be, especially for some of the newbies in the EV world. And I know there's been a lot of communications going on Facebook of new members, so welcome. Of course, new EV owners. Of course, there's a lot of opportunity for you to learn a lot. And of course, I'm here together with self-proclaimed Mr. EV Ireland, who actually does not own an EV himself, because he owns every EV that's pretty much being driven for test drive. So Derek, handing it over to you for a sec.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you very much. I drive a different EV every week, which is great. We've got lots of comments coming in already. We've got Colin coming in on YouTube, which is saying, well. We've got Jared coming in on LinkedIn, which is great to see that all the networks working for us. We've got Craig coming in on YouTube as well. Good afternoon, Craig. We've got Rodrigo coming in on LinkedIn, and we have Frederic coming in. Thank you for having organized all of this and here to get an informative session and a great event. So you can see our corporate members along the bottom. We've got Energia, we've got Free Now, Pinergy, SAP, and Transbuco. If you're interested in becoming a corporate member, drop along to our website, Irish EV Owners. Just Google it, and you can become a member if you want to become a member. Or a corporate member. So lots of opportunities there to support the work that we do here. What's on the agenda today, Roland?
Well, let me share my screen. There we go. This is the agenda for today. So we're just kicking this off, and we're pretty well on time so far. And then we hand it over to Andreas, who's going to give us an update on Ionity. Following that, we will have John to give us an update on the Tesla network. And then we have our own Simon sharing a bit of updates from the Irish EV Association. We have Chris then following that on EasyGo updates, and we have Lynn doing updates on eCars. And after that, we will have a panel discussion. And after that, it's going to be a hard stop at 2:15, because a lot of those fanatic rugby members really want to see the kickoff of rugby. And I would really like to jump into my new car that arrived yesterday, of course, an EV, to have a nice proper test drive in it as well. So yep, we have a full packed agenda. And I can't wait to get started.
Perfect. I'm going to go through a couple of more comments that we've got coming in. We've got Thomas coming in on YouTube. Good afternoon. We've got Byron coming in, giving us the 2 eyes. We've got Brian coming in on YouTube, giving us a good afternoon as well. And we also have a Facebook user. And if you're coming up as a Facebook user, that means you need to let StreamYard see your name. So go into your settings if you'd like to see your name displayed and your comment displayed. We would like to know who's talking. Lastly, we've got John Dunn coming in. Hi, guys. Thanks for getting this together. We're really looking forward to a great afternoon. And as Roland was saying, we are on time, and that's the way we like to do it here at the Irish EV Owners Association. So, Roland, if you'd like to bring in our first speaker.
Absolutely. And here is Andreas. Welcome, Andreas. If you would like to share your screen, then we can get that set up. Okay, very good. Over to you, Andreas.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. My name's Andreas Atkins. I'm the country manager for Ionity for UK and Ireland. I joined Ionity towards the end of last year, coming with about 10 years experience working in the EV infrastructure industry, starting back in 2012. So moving on to Ionity, for those that don't know, Ionity is a venture that's owned and funded by all of the car brands that you can see here. So it's quite unique in that sense. We our ultra rapid 350 kilowatt charger. It's a collaboration between essentially these competitor OEM brands. And it's always nice to see collaboration across this market to help this progress. I'll be talking a little bit about some things we're even doing with Tesla a little bit later in the presentation. And I guess the news here was the announcement we made in December, the investment from BlackRock. So the existing OEM shareholders and BlackRock between them invested a further 700 million euros into the Ionity business to support the expansion of our network across Europe, which you'll be pleased to hear. Our mission, as you can see on the screen here, is to build a charging hub every 120 kilometers, every 80 miles, all across Europe. So from the south of Italy to the north of the Nordics. And as I mentioned, it's CCS standard 350 kilowatt chargers only. So the network expansion, I know this is a question that many of us ask. With the new investment, we can expect a fourfold increase in the number of chargers and charging hubs across the UK and Ireland over the next few years up to 2025. You can see on the right, the green markers here are the open existing sites that we have in the UK and Ireland currently today. And the black pins that I've got in the map here, these are target locations where we will be seeking to open new hubs this year and the next 2 years following. For those that haven't used one of our stations yet, this would be a typical layout. You can see the 350 kilowatt chargers here. Because we are a hub that's focused on enabling longer distance intercity travel, for us, it's about accessibility. So we will only do 6 to 12 charger hubs. And it's because a driver is going to be visiting one of our charging hubs for the purpose of refueling, so they can carry the journey. So we make sure that there's enough chargers there so someone can get a charge when they need to then return to their journey. We normally try to start with 6 as a base, then expand that to 12. There are some issues on some sites with power connections, which is the main restriction stopping us from doing that. But the ultimate aim is a 6 to 12 charger hub network that we'll have. As you can see on here, we have 6 chargers in an array. To the right, we've got the power cabinets. And then typically behind that, you would have the transformer and the ring main where you make the connection to the grid.
Andreas, before you continue, there's on your pop-up at the bottom of the screen, it says the word hide. If you'd want to click on that, perfect. That'd be great. Oh, we're after. And then, yes, excellent. Thank you.
That works. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so a little bit about renewable energies with Ionity. So the BlackRock investment's interesting, as well as the capital that they've put into the business to help with the expansion. BlackRock are also owners of wind and solar farms around the world, and we're going to be exploring across Europe how we can integrate some of these renewable generating plants into the Ionity network as soon as we can over the years. There's an example of a site we've opened relatively recently in the Czech Republic. You have to excuse my pronunciation here, Lovosice, I believe. This is an example where we've actually connected an Ionity charging hub directly with a private wire from the hydro plant here in this particular location. And we actually share this location. We share the transformer with Tesla, with the substation. So we've each got our own transformers coming off that substation. So Tesla have a site right next to us at this particular location. And it's just a nice example where this is genuinely pure renewable energy that's literally off grid. And in the UK, we have a contract with Octopus Energy for their green energy tariff. A little bit about the technology. So we opened in November. We opened our new testing center in Bavaria. This is a site where we do full end-to-end testing to make sure that new vehicles coming out to market work correctly with our charging equipment. And we also test other new technology functionality that we bring to market. So the latest example is plug and charge. To plug and charge in accordance with the ISO 15118, a little bit like the Tesla example. You literally plug the holster into the vehicle. There's a digital connection that's made, and there's a verification on the vehicle, and the car starts to charge, so without having to use any app or card. And the billing is then stored in the vehicle, and that's handled behind the scenes directly. The OEM essentially programs the vehicle to enable this. We've currently got this working with Porsche with the Taycan, Ford with the Mach-E, and Mercedes with the EQS, but we can expect some more of the manufacturers to soon be bringing this to the marketplace. And as I mentioned before, with a 700 million euro investment from our shareholders and BlackRock, expect more expansion of our network and some more technology to come into the market, including in the UK and Ireland, tap and go. So credit contactless charging will soon be coming to market. Expect to see that soon. And lastly, I know we always get asked questions about the payments. We've now also launched the Ionity passport, as you can see on the screen here. It's 35 euro cents per kilowatt, and there's a monthly subscription with this particular Ionity passport. You can use this across, it's pan-European, so all of our network across Europe. And then, of course, each of our shareholder OEMs, the vehicles come with a form of subscription or pass. Some of these are as low as 25 pence per kilowatt without any subscription. That's the latest update from myself. And I will take Q&A, I believe, at the end.
Great, thank you so much, Andreas. Yes, there have been already quite a few comments and questions as well on the chat, so you can definitely have a look at that and come back to that in our Q&A. I really appreciate the update. I think, how are we doing with timing there, Derek?
Perfect, I love it. I'd rather shoot through it and have lots more time for questions at the end. So Andreas, I really appreciate how brief you were, but everybody is very excited about some of the site locations, the Ionity passport option as well, if they're looking for a reduced price per kilowatt hour. So really good to see it. So thank you very much. It's great for our members to see that.
Okay, so with that, we'll be handing this over to John Casey. John, I will be flicking through your slides for you, so just let me know.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. So just a bit about myself. I have been driving a Tesla Model S since 2018. Done significant mileage prior to the lockdown, but is back on the road a little bit again. So next slide, please. So just a little bit of information about the network. So we have, as people will hopefully be aware, we have a site on the M8 at Ballacalla, on the M7 at Bird Hill, Castle Bellingham, both north and southbound. So those sites have been up and running a number of years. And most recently in 2021, they have opened a version 3 site in Mahon Point near Cork City, and also Ballingarry House in Tralee has 2 superchargers also. There are some more coming soon, very soon, if activity is to be believed, because Athenry, Raheen Woods, and Enfield Johnstown House, which would be on the M6 and the M4 respectively, seem to be progressing very nicely. So any day now, we should hopefully have superchargers there. And also works is ongoing next to the service centre in Sandyford, which is just off the M50. So other than that, the group are hoping that there will be also further announcements throughout this year. Most notably, we hope Belfast, and as I see here straight up in front of me, I was just about to mention the M9, that we're hopeful that a site will be announced somewhere in the southeast, somewhere being possibly close to Rosslare. However, we have no information to hand at the moment, unfortunately, and I cannot give you any information. Another area which is obviously bereft of superchargers is the northwest. So we're hopeful that some sites could be secured and found there. But I want to talk to you about the destination charger network also, because possibly people do not know that the destination charger network, which is most of the dark grey black dots on the map, is some of those chargers is open to non-Tesla cars, and some of them are 22 kilowatt type 2 AC cars available. So you would typically find these destination chargers at some hospitality outlets, possibly hotels, possibly some tourist outlets. There is several, as you can see, dotted around various parts of the country. And there is several imminent coming soon. Okay. If you drive into an area where there is a destination charger, you typically find that some of these chargers are reserved for Tesla cars only, and some, indicated by white signage, are available for universal type 2 charging. Tesla have had discussions with us about the destination charger network and have indicated to us that they will be making a proposal to hospitality, whereby hospitality places and all others who would be hosting these destination chargers will have the ability to recoup some of the costs associated with the ongoing use. So there will be the ability in future for a hospitality or whoever is hosting to impose some level of charges on it. At the moment, currently, the network of destination chargers is open for free, so you do not pay to charge. However, given that they're in hospitality mostly, it is generally courteous to phone ahead and possibly become a guest, a paying guest, or dine in some of the restaurants associated with these. So that's the story with the destination charger network. Next slide there, please. Now, there has been talks about the opening of the supercharger network, and the Netherlands was one of the first countries to open up some of their superchargers for all electric vehicles. And since that, most recently, France and Norway has opened it up, and there is talks about 2 other countries in the EU opening up their supercharger network. And naturally enough, this has led to some concerns with Tesla owners about the exclusivity and being able to charge, and also the fact that the location of the charge port on the superchargers, on the cars, and on the superchargers in relation to the parking spaces could mean that the charging spaces will actually be left that the Tesla car cannot actually charge whilst another EV is charging. So the basics has been produced, that basic diagram has been produced in relation to the etiquette if the charger networks are opened up in relation to charging, if your charge port is not, as we call it, a regular on that picture. Now, is there a plan at the moment to open up all Irish, UK supercharger sites? No, there is no plans at the moment, but I'm sure Tesla has indicated that depending on availability and usage on sites, that they will at some stage most likely open up some of the network. So just to let you know that that is possibly coming. at the moment, as I understand it, if in Europe somebody who is non-Tesla is charging at one of these superchargers, they're paying a rate per kilowatt hour. Now, next slide, please. So on the final slide, I just have given you a couple of links there in relation to if you wished to host a site. So Tesla are always looking for new sites. The number of sites in relation to the growth of cars is not great. They're always looking to have new sites. And if you know of anyone, perhaps a strategic location, perhaps in the areas I've mentioned, that has availability of a site, access to power, all of that, and wants to host, there's the URL, the top one, in relation to host a supercharger. And as I mentioned in relation to destination charging, if you're aware of a hotel or another hospitality outfit that wants business from electric vehicles, to make us known that the sites are useful, to click in on that link there. And if anyone wants to put a message up saying that they're aware of it, we can pick it up also. So that's the two links in relation to hosting supercharger sites and hosting destination charging. So that's all I have to say to you, guys. Okay.
All right, John. So thank you very much. That's very insightful and great to see some updates also on the front of Tesla. I would personally be looking forward to see Tesla also opening up like we have done in the Netherlands and in Norway. I know that's probably a heated topic for some of the Tesla owners, particularly with some of the vehicles having the charge point on the rather goofy side. So thank you very much. Let's move on to bring in our Simon, who will be giving the update on. Oh, we're all clicking the same buttons at the same time. So, Simon,
Hello.
you just need to share your screen, I think.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I think it is shared.
Yep.
And you can see the slideshow, yeah?
Yes, we can. Over to you.
Great. Thanks, Roland. And yeah, big thank you for Roland and Derek for emceeing today. Take the pressure off me. That's great. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Simon Acton and I'm the current chair of AVOA, have been for the last 3 years. So as we were talking about EV charging today, we thought it would be a good idea to throw in for any of our new members, and we're getting a lot of new members, a lot of people now getting into EVs that probably weren't a year ago the last time we talked about this sort of thing. So we thought we'd do a quick EV charging 101 to give some information and tips around that. So hopefully that's useful to new EV owners and a reminder to some of the existing owners as we go along as well. So I'll crack on. Now, so first of all, what are the different ways you can charge your car? So obviously, home charging is something that we very much look towards as EV drivers, and it's generally always considered the best place to be charging your car because you probably never have to queue because it's your own location. Now, a couple of different ways to charge your car at home. You can charge either with a 3-pin plug, also commonly known as a granny charger, which is the picture there in the top right. Many cars come supplied with these. Some do not, especially if you buy a second-hand car, you might find that it's not been included. But it's always a good thing to have and always a good backup if you're traveling away from home as well, to somewhere that maybe doesn't have a charge point. So the only downside with these really is obviously security of the connection and so on. You need an outside 3-pin socket generally, and yeah, the charging is quite slow, so only 2 to 3 kilowatts. So if you imagine your car is a 30 kilowatt battery, for example, that's going to take at least 10 hours to charge the car. So it's really a kind of a backup thing to use. Most commonly, a home charger, of course, and most people I'm sure will have a home charger, also known commonly as a wall box. So there are many different types of and brands of wall boxes. So I've shown a Zappi there. That would be one of the more common ones. Most home chargers these days will typically charge at around 7 kilowatts. So you're getting a good amount of charge in an overnight charge. For most of the cars that we see on the market now, you manage to get a full charge at 7 kilowatts overnight. But some older units might only charge at 3 kilowatts, and there are some situations where people have three-phase electricity and they might be able to charge at home up to 11 kilowatts, but that is not particularly common in Ireland. I guess the other thing to say about home chargers is if you are getting a smart charger, for example, like the Zappi we see there, or the, for example, the EO Mini Pro, they can also tap into any solar PV you have. So you really could be using free green energy to charge your car. Now we move on to the second place you can charge in public. Now there are several different types of charging units, and there's a lot of different terminology around what we call different things. Do we call them slow or fast or standard or rapid? And different organizations and charging networks use different terminology. For the purpose of this discussion, and I'm sure everyone will disagree, but I'll just talk about the three broad types. Now, public slow or standard charging, as e-cars will call it, are chargers that are between 3 and 22 kilowatts. Now, with these chargers, they're typically the smaller units, like we see there on the top right, which is a unit at one of the little outlets, which I think EasyGo are running quite a lot of these units now. So typically these will be 22 kilowatt units, but oftentimes they could be lower. So they might be from 3, 7, or up to 22 kilowatts. Now, I'll go on to talk about car capabilities later, but obviously how the capabilities of your car will determine how quickly you can charge from one of those chargers. The next grade, if you like, are what we call fast or rapid chargers, and these will be up to 50 kilowatts, and they would be the most common type of rapid charger. And then we have, and we've seen these more commonly now, and particularly as Andreas mentioned earlier, high power chargers on the Ionity network. Also now we see those on the eCars network and other networks as well, including Tesla. So just one thing we'll throw in, because there's quite a bit of discussion about this on the forum over recent days. Just remember, if you're charging in public, particularly if you're on a street, check, because you might need to pay for parking. Particularly in Dublin, you will have to pay for parking. In other counties, it's different. The rules vary. We would love to see it as a uniform position across all of the county councils, but realistically, that might never happen. So please check if you're parking and charging on the street, that you might also need to pay for parking as well as you're charging. So what's with all the different types of plugs? Now, those of us that have been involved in this for a while will know that there are lots of different plug and cable and socket types. And this is an unfortunate situation, but this is typically what happens when technologies evolve over time. We end up with different variations. People equate it to those people my age probably or older would remember like VHS video and Betamax video, and eventually these sort of standards converge. Currently, for slow charging, we would typically use the Type 2 socket, but there are other socket types available, most commonly the Type 1. Most cars now will come equipped with Type 2 for slow charging, but you'll see some of the older cars like the pre-2018 Nissan Leaf and the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, which use still the Type 1 socket for slow charging. Now, when you're using these socket types, you're typically using your own cable that you've brought with you to plug into the unit. Now, for fast charging, again, there are a few different options. So most commonly now we see CCS, Common Charging Standard. This is on most of the new cars that we see on the market these days, with probably the only two main exceptions for full BEVs, which use CHAdeMO, being the Nissan Leaf and the Lexus UX. We also still see CHAdeMO on the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. very much it seems that for rapid charging, everything is converging towards CCS, and a lot of the networks are starting to only supply, for example, Ionity will only provide, particularly in this country, CCS charging on their network, although I believe that might be slightly different in other locations. There is a third standard for rapid charging called AC43, but this really is only applied historically to the Renault Zoe, and this is something that we're starting to see phased out on many of the charge units on our network, unfortunately, because it really is not massively widely used, but we'd still like to see Type 2 available as many places as possible, so Zoes can charge up to 22 kilowatts on a standard Type 2 socket. So, yeah, as I say, just to summarize, most cars now are standardizing to Type 2 and CCS for charging across slow and rapid charging. So how do you find chargers? And there are lots of different answers to this question. Now, of course, all of the networks have their own proprietary applications that you can use to find the chargers on their network, and some of the operators will also show you chargers on other networks. However, there are a number of other apps available that you can use and are really useful, such as ZapMap, which you see there in the top right. That's originally UK developed, but they also show all of the chargers, or the vast majority of chargers, in Ireland as well. PlugShare is also a very useful app and also has a great interface, I found, for route planning. And then the third one that people normally talk about is a Better Route Planner, which is the third one there down on the right-hand side. Now, all of these apps are available for iPhone and Android, and I believe that if you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in your car, you might also be able to use them in your car in certain situations. So as well as that, there are some other sort of conglomerate apps cropping up, the latest one being Bonnet. There aren't many networks on Bonnet yet in Ireland, but I expect that's going to be one to watch. The other thing, generally speaking, Google Maps is becoming a better place as time moves on to find chargers as well. And of course, the vast majority of cars have in-car navigation, which includes the ability to find charging locations, and I think Tesla is particularly good at that. So another common question, why isn't my car charging faster? Now, we see this an awful lot, and it's always important to remember that it is your car that determines the charge speed and not necessarily the charger. Obviously, the charger has an upper bound as to what it can supply. In many cases now, that might be 350 kilowatts. But if your car won't support that level of charging, it will not charge at that speed. So we see a lot of headlines saying, oh yeah, you can charge your car in 10 minutes on our 350 kilowatt chargers, which is fantastic if you have a car that can actually do that. But many of the cars on the market at this point in time don't have that capability, and especially as we go back through some of the used models, most will top out at 50 kilowatts. So just bear that in mind when you're charging. There are also other factors that can impact charging speed. So as I said, the capabilities of your car, both at slow and rapid charging, a lot of cars will be 6 or 7 kilowatts on slow charging and 50 kilowatts or maybe slightly more on rapid charging. The current state of charge of your car. So this is another common one. So your car has a built-in battery management system, which basically manages how the car charges itself to protect the health of the battery. So what we find with many cars is that if the car already has a high state of charge, say 50, 60, 70%, it won't charge as fast as it will from a low state of charge, like 10%. So if you plug into a 350 kilowatt charger and see that your car's only charging at 50 kilowatts, it might be related to the state of charge of your battery. Most cars will bleed off in terms of how quickly they will charge above 80% or 90%. So that's why we often talk about, in terms of rapid charging, a charge to 80%, because beyond that, it's not really worth staying on the rapid charger much longer to try and get that last 20%, because it will be slow. Ambient conditions can also affect charging as well. So if it's really cold, batteries don't really like being charged quickly if they're very cold. And again, the battery management system in the car will control the speed at which the car will charge to protect the health of the battery. So that can be a consideration as well. And car settings as well. Some cars have settings built in which will adjust the rate of charge. So if your car is one of the brands that has those, then it's worth bearing that in mind to make sure that you haven't got a setting set that will only limit the rate of charge to a particular level. So it's always important, know the capabilities of your car, know what the maximum charge rate is, both for slow charging and for fast charging, and choose a charger accordingly. So oftentimes we've seen in the past quite a lot, we've seen plug-in hybrids in particular, which will only charge typically at like 7 kilowatts, plugging into the AC43 port on a rapid charger and preventing someone else who might come along with a car that can charge faster on that unit. They could charge just as fast on a slow charge unit. So just bear that in mind. And yeah, one other thing, and this is someone who had a problem finding that their car wasn't charging quickly enough. Good old Shane Ross. And the reason his car wasn't charging very fast is because the charger hadn't yet been commissioned. So that's one that's always worth checking as well. So range, this is another common question that we get quite a lot. So your car will have what's called a guessometer, a GOM, and that's basically giving you a projection as to the amount of range that your car should achieve. And unlike in traditional ICE cars, this will be much more tailored to the sort of driving that you've been doing and how you've been driving the car most recently. So your car basically decides what it thinks the remaining range will be based on how you've been driving it and where you've been driving it and how fast you've been going. So if you've been screaming down the motorway at 120, the next time you charge the car to 100%, it will show a lot less range than if you've been driving around locally at no more than 50 kilometers an hour. So a lot of new owners struggle with this, but this is quite normal. So definitely bear that in mind when you look at what range projection your car is giving you, and it will adjust and adapt as you drive to give you the most realistic projection based on how you're driving at the moment. Other factors that can be taken into account there as well include ambient temperature. So typically batteries aren't as efficient when it's cold, so you might get less projected range. Also, if you precondition your car, oftentimes that will help warm up the battery and it might give you more predicted range when you start your journey than if it hasn't been plugged in. And also ancillaries. Most ancillaries don't really affect the range of your car very much. So people talk about, oh, you know, if you've got the lights and the wipers on and things like this, they use very little electricity, but the air conditioning is one to keep an eye on. If it's very cold and you're heavily using the aircon, then it can affect your range. So yeah, just a reminder, your car typically will not show the same range every time you charge it to 100%.
Hey, Simon, I think we need to start to wrap it up a little bit because we have other speakers who really are eager to get started.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, I'm taking too long as usual. Just then, very quickly, charging etiquette. So there are a lot of things we should bear in mind when we're charging in public. The number one being that a charging bay isn't a parking space. So if you're in a charging bay, always be charging, don't park there. I'll leave that there. Very quick one for rapid charging. The Need to Charge app is a very good app that you can use if you want to basically flag up that you're at a rapid charger waiting for someone else. So give a plug to that. And all the etiquette information in general is shown on the Irish EV Owners website there. The link's at the bottom of the page. Thank you very much. I'll leave it there.
On mute. Thanks, Simon. I'm on mute. Simon's clock must have stopped there or something like that, but whoever decided to give Simon 5 minutes to do all of that, and it's not his fault, there is a lot in it, and as an association we will be doing workshops in the future. I'm currently at a charging station in myself, and somebody came to knock on my window that they needed a charge. So I was able to move around and let them in. So lots of things to understand when you are an EV driver. Next up, we have Chris Kelly from EasyGo. Chris, how are you this afternoon? Hope you're well. And Chris is going to talk about the state of the EasyGo network and what's happening there and future plans. I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Derek, and hi guys. Yeah, it's great to be part of this discussion about the charging network. I think it's one of the things that we're going to see grow exponentially in the next 2 to 3 years, which is fantastic and long overdue. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about where we are and about what it is that we plan to do for the next 2 to 3 years as well. I suppose when we started out, we were probably better known for home and destination charging, with a view to extending into public charging with AC charge points. The AC charge points, I think Lidl would have been one of our most prominent customers there, where we supply the AC charge points as previously mentioned, and they can charge up to 22 kilowatts for each car, if the car is capable of taking it. And I'll talk a little bit about Lidl in a minute. They seem to be progressing more into the DC charge point side as well, which is it's nice to see. But a little bit about the business itself and where we're at. Towards the end of 2021, we'd been looking to raise funding just to be able to expand the network as to what it is that we, where it is that we can move to, rather than just sell chargers, because destinations typically didn't want to spend a lot of money on DC charge points. They're quite an expensive piece of kit, you can understand that, and the payback takes a little bit of time depending on the uptake on EVs and the availability of EVs. It's still going to be a number of years before that all becomes viable. We've taken the plunge to move on a little from the AC into the DC. Still doing AC, there's always going to be destination chargers needed. But with cars coming with larger batteries now, you're finding with an AC charger, people need to be plugged in for 2, 4, 6 hours to get the value out of an AC charge point. Typical charging on the new cars is 11 kilowatts on a 3-phase charge point. And with battery sizes now coming in 60 to 80 kilowatts in size, we're looking at longer times. So that's why supermarkets as short-term destinations are now looking at the DC charging option. We're in talks with a lot of supermarket providers now about providing the destination and top-up chargers, 50 and 75 kilowatt charging. Yeah, so we recently received the funding. We're expanding our team in EasyGo. We've started with the sales team and some of our technical team as well. You may have seen the ads out there where we're still hiring for some people. But having the sales team on board now means that we can provide the expertise to people who are curious that have destinations where chargers can be fitted. And we can easily discuss, the technicalities of it, whether it be power, whether it be what's best for that particular site, and look at what customer requirements are. So it's great to see our team growing. So we're now at a team of 24 people. We're still based in Maynooth, and we're expanding fast into Northern Ireland as well. Currently, we've identified a lot of locations for DC chargers. We're going to put AC chargers everywhere. That's our plan. With some of the deals that we've got with hotel chains, with supermarket chains, you'll see a lot more AC chargers popping up. But I think the DC chargers are what adds a lot of value. We've identified the locations, as in we've identified the towns. We're still looking for particular sites, and there's a lot of sites out there. A lot of site owners may not know that they've got the capability of having a DC charger fitted, or even know about the benefits of DC chargers on their site, and the custom they can attract as well to their business. We do know, we've worked with hotels in the past. Hotels actually love having the DC charger in place because A lot of them have excess power to be able to supply a 50 kilowatt DC charge point. A lot of people like to stop for 30-40 minutes now on a DC charge point, grab a bite to eat while they're on the road, and move on. It adds a lot more value than stopping at an AC charge point for 30 minutes. So if you know of site owners within Ireland and Northern Ireland that might be interested, we've got various business models in place that we can have a chat with them about. So we've the continued expansion of AC chargers and destination chargers. We're looking at a lot of fleet charging, for instance. So a lot of companies with depots, with their own car parks, where we can fit multiple car charge points. And of course, we can take into consideration load management when it comes to power issues, because that does seem to be prevalent nearly everywhere we go. A lot of sites have tightened up on what power is available, just to be able to manage their MIC levels and not be penalized for overusage. We work with site owners now in managing their expectations there and managing the amount of power that can be used for charging, particularly where we've people stopped in workplaces for 6 to 10 hours in a day. So we're looking forward to expanding more on that. And of course, there's vehicle to grid coming along the lines as well. And there's a lot more happening as well in the EV charging space. We've started to roll out our 75 kilowatt DC charge points. The 75 kilowatt DC chargers, we've got one in Malin now, we've got one in Galway City. We're looking at rolling out a lot more in the coming 6 to 8 months. And keep an eye on social media. You'll see where those sites are, where we're going to be putting the charge points. Some of the sites we can talk about, some of them we can't talk about yet, because some of our partners want to have some PR on it. So we've constantly got people asking, are we putting chargers here and there? We've a lot in the pipeline, I can tell you that. But there's a lot we just can't talk about for a minute. The 75 kilowatt DC chargers, by the way, we do like putting those in, because even though there's a CCS in Shadamo charge point on it, the chargers themselves can actually charge 2 cars at a time. And I know most cars nowadays are coming with CCS charging. So people have asked, why are we focusing on providing CCS and Shadamo? Well, there's still a lot of Nissan Leafs and Mitsubishi Outlanders out there who are the main cars that can charge with Shadamo. So until that changes and until CCS ramps up a bit further, you're going to see charge points with both outlets at it. The 75 kilowatt DC charge points, we can then change them, and for putting in sites where there's multiple charge points, we can then put in 2 CCS outlets and charge 2 CCS chargers at a time from them. Just move on now to Lidl, which are on the screen. So Lidl had, they've been working with us to put in the AC charge points. And lately you're starting to see DC charge points arrive on sites. We do know there's plans to put multiple AC charge points, and we also know there's plans to put more DC charge points. But I think for the moment, the next 20 or so stores that are going to have upgrades will have DC chargers. I don't want to talk about the stores in like to advertise the stores themselves. So, but what I would say is have a look and see what Lidl stores are being upgraded or where there's planning permission in for changes on the site. You'll typically see charge points coming in there. I did see a message pop up there about Waterford, by the way, in the southeast. Yes, we do have, we've got a lot of sites actually lined up for the next year all over the country and in Northern Ireland as well. Another service that we're bringing to the fore is an e-fuel card service. What we're finding is that companies are putting in charge points at home for employees. It's obviously the most efficient way to charge, the best way to charge. It's nighttime. You can get some fantastic night rates out there. So it makes it a lot more sense for companies who are paying the bill for the EV charging to allow employees to charge at home. We provide a fuel card that allows charging at home, charging at a work depot or workplace, and also charging on the public charging networks. So it's the only fuel card out there which allows you to charge on the EasyGo, ESB, eCars, and the Ionity networks. And it's a service that's not very expensive, but it allows companies to receive a statement every month showing what each driver has used at home for reimbursement purposes, in the public for whatever they've used and paid for. And of course, if they've got chargers in their depot and they want to monitor usage there. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think it's a very important part of expansion, because a lot of EVs coming to the market now are the EVs are particularly business supplied and fleet supplied. So I think we'll buy back a few minutes. I'm not going to continue on anymore, because I know there's going to be Q&A at the end, and quite happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for the update on EasyGo. Let's move on to the next part of the agenda. It's eCars, and we'll have John Byrne joining us. Let me just see. There we have. Hi, John.
How are you,
And I believe I'm great. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thanks for putting on this event. It's been great so far. Great speakers and a great turnout.
Excellent. Happy to do so. So I'll guide you through the slides. So just let me know when you want me to move forward with the slide.
Yeah, just pop on to the next one. I want to introduce myself. John Byrne is my name. I'm the head of eCars. I'm going to run through very quickly a number of slides, largely focused on infrastructure. And my colleague Lynn Darcy will take 3 more slides really around the most recent customer survey we did and the feedback that a lot of the people on this call sort of provided. So for those of you who mightn't already know, eCars is the largest sort of charge point operator in Ireland at the minute in terms of what we own and operate. We established back in 2009. Actually met a guy yesterday, a former employee of eCars, who told me that they celebrated 1 year quite wildly when 300 cars were added to the network. So we've come a long way since then. Our network is fully interoperable, so we operated on an all-island basis. We've 1,350 charge points at the various sort of capacities, 22s, fast chargers. We've 230 of those and growing. They're 50s, and our next generation will have a greater capacity. And then the hubs, we've 16 high-powered charging hubs built. They're all nominally about 150 kilowatts. If you go on, Roland, if you can, please. Yeah, thank you. We're in the middle of a €20 million investment program. So since 2009, I think our spend is between 75 and 80 million, and this chunk of spend was largely to upgrade the sort of standard network over the last 18 months. So about half the standard network was updated, revised with sort of the latest tech and chargers. And we also took the opportunity to take out 50 standard chargers and upgrade them to fast chargers. That's about 75% of the way finished that particular program. We have sort of, we finished with the stock of 50 kilowatt chargers. We're now awaiting delivery of 100 kilowatt units. So the remaining 30% will in fact be 100 kilowatt units that come across the line. But for the next 24 months of this particular investment program, the focus will be on high-powered charging hubs, obviously, which can charge multiple EVs simultaneously. There's 52 in total, which will be delivered. And if you roll just on to the next slide, Roland, I'll just give you a sort of a quick synopsis of where we are. So look, these hubs, 150 or 200 kilowatt units. If you have the car, as Simon says, they'll take 100 kilometers of range in as little as 6 minutes. So they're ideal really for stop, a quick cup of coffee, comfort break, or whatever, and get back on the road quickly. We've 16 of those 52 hubs now installed. They were all installed in the year gone by in 2021. 5 of them finished out in December, a couple down in Cork, 1 in Dublin, and 1 in Limerick. We 4 hubs which are as of this moment under construction. For those who may not know, they are in Cork and Fermoy, they're in Monaghan, Limerick, and Tuam. And we've 12 sites in various sort of pre-construction phases. Now, my next slide, if we can, Roland, just go on. This slide is, I've put it in just because we get asked this a lot, and it's the journey to installation. And the reality is, I'd say I or any one of the speakers here today could talk about this slide probably for an hour to an hour and a half. But in 90 seconds, the journey for a hub, or indeed chargers in many cases, starts with data and analytics that your back office team will do. That's followed then by a negotiation or a lease phase with the land owners. One of the absolute critical component, and it's always on a critical path, is the grid connection. Okay, and in every single application we make, the grid connection is paramount, really, because we require electricity, obviously, to run the chargers. In all of the hubs, a substation typically is required for the model that we run, and for the larger hubs, I guess the sort of larger hubs that we build, Ionity would be sort of familiar with these as well. Planning permission is required. So typically you try and run grid connection, planning permission simultaneously. And then it comes to the installation of the actual chargers itself, which can be the easiest part. Some of the other factors for consideration, which aren't always thought about: signage, accessibility for people less mobile than others, bay markings, bollards, lighting. Then once the charger is installed, you've got repair and maintenance to keep the reliability of the network on a sort of an always-on basis. And then you have the full back office, the fully digital platforms that all of us run for payment and for tracking, etc. Look, it's really just an educational slide, which I wanted to sort of share with you. I see there was quite a few comments on the forum there around this, so we thought it'd be an opportunity to put it in. What I'll do is I'll pass you over to Lynn. Lynn is going to take you through the customer survey, which we've really recently done, and we got, I think, around 9,000 pieces of individual feedback. So, Lynn, if you're there.
Yeah, hi everyone. Just before we move on to that, we might just touch on the Northern Ireland network. So, just a quick update on that. Up in the north, we have a network of around 170 chargers, and it was installed as part of a consortium over a decade ago. And a lot of the chargers up there need to be updated and upgraded. So we announced before Christmas that we had been awarded through the Levelling Up Fund a sum of money to replace and enhance the entire EV charging network in the north. So we will be replacing 122 kilowatt chargers with 7 50s, which are fast. We'll be upgrading 20 fast 2 rapids, and then we will also be building out 5 new 200 kilowatt high power hubs. So that's just work that's coming down the tracks, and I know from looking at comments on the forums that, you know, Northern Ireland is you know, in need of some investment, and it's great to be able to talk about what's coming down the tracks. So we move on then to our customer survey. So firstly, to say we survey our customer base every year to get an idea of your experience using the network, and also to ask for feedback in terms of what we can do better, what we're doing well. And we really appreciate everybody giving their time and effort into giving us loads of information that we use then for the year ahead. So this is just a snapshot of some of the feedback we got. We had nearly 11,000 individual pieces of feedback covering the Irish and the Northern Irish network. So it took quite a while to sift through all of that and to I suppose figure out what we should prioritize in terms of improvement plans, and also taking on board some of the positive comments people make. So really just a background of what the recipients, some of the analysis. So 71% own an EV that's 3 years or newer, 78% have a home charger, and 61% charge mostly at home and use the public network to top up. And it's not surprising that 34% of people's charging habits changed during COVID when you look at the previous year's findings. 65% are within 5 kilometers of an ESB charger. And then when you look at how people feel about our network, so 88% have noticed that the network has improved over the last 12 months, which is great to see. 74% find the eCar Connect app useful, and 69% are satisfied with our customer support channels. So we put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the guys manning the call center are well trained and can help people if they do get into a spot of bother at a charger. It's not surprising at all that over 50% of drivers want to see more fast chargers on the network, and great to see John outlining our plans in that area. 74% support the overfee, and 70% believe we offer value. So that's just a snapshot. And when you go onto the next slide, you'll just see some of the likes and then some of the areas for improvement. So some of the positive feedback is around the app, the live information available, and that it's easy to use our chargers. They're reliable. We've helpful customer care. People have noticed the new fast chargers and the high power chargers. I think are really going down well with drivers. Our locations and the spread and the access to our network, the value, and then also that they're easy to spot. And then some areas for improvement that are part of our improvement plan for this year is obviously the Northern Ireland network, which I outlined a couple of minutes ago, and there'll be a lot of work on that this year. The user experience, so there was loads of suggestions of how we can make the eCar Connect app a little bit easier to use, or to introduce some functionality. So we're looking at that this year also. Obviously people want faster chargers and more hubs. So again, John has outlined our plans in that space, and then maintaining our high standards of customer care, making sure that we train and we keep our call center staff, up to date on all the information so that they can help drivers. And then also what we have done is devised a whole plan around helping new drivers with their EV transition, which is the next slide and is the final slide. So if you can move on, that would be fantastic. Thanks a million. So one of the areas we identified last year that we could help people a little bit more in was with new drivers. So we can see through Facebook and also through calls to our call center that it is a daunting change for people to go from an ICE vehicle to an EV. It's not so simple, and there's loads of jargon and loads of kind of different things that you need to know. So we kind of took a step back and looked at a new driver from all the different angles, and devised a plan around how we might be able to help people. So the first thing we did was we created a new website page with all the information you might need. So it covers a lot of the information that has already been covered by Simon earlier around the different connector types, why different cars charge at different speeds, how-to videos of all the different chargers on our network, all of the different information, jargon busters and tips and etiquette. And then for people who might be looking to buy an EV, the benefits, outlining all the benefits around it. That was one part. And then we devised a marketing campaign to drive people to that page through digital ads, through Google search, through social content. And then the other thing we have devised is a electric vehicle quick start guide, which you'll see up on the left-hand side of the content. And I actually have a hard copy here with me, and that is a brochure with all of useful information for a new driver. And what we've done is we've linked in with all the car dealerships, and we are distributing them nationwide so that when somebody collects their new EV, they get this brochure either in a hard copy or through a link through their through an email that the car dealer has sent, which just gives all the basic information that a new driver would need to get started. And what we've also done is looked at our own communications to our drivers who sign up. So when people receive their charge point access card in the post, we've put QR codes on the letter just to give them an easy way of accessing both our eCar Connect app and our quick start guide. So that's really just an overview of some of the recent activity we have had, and if anyone has any further feedback at all, we're delighted to hear it, as the drivers themselves are the best source of information that we can draw on in terms of helping people into the future.
Lovely, Lynn. Thank you so much. The questions and comment sections are lighting up. So what we'll do is we'll run through it. We've got rugby kicking off very soon, so we're going to try and keep this to 10 minutes. With regards to the questions, if you have any other questions, just make sure that you have put it into comments. If you enjoyed today's session, make sure you've liked the wherever you're watching it, on Facebook or LinkedIn. It will be stored there as a recording afterwards, so that you can watch it if you weren't able to catch it all. And we've had hundreds of people on over the last hour, so it's been phenomenal. So the first question I have is coming in from Owen, and it's for Ionity and Tesla. So I'll bring back in Andreas, if that's okay, and also John Casey. But this is also for John from eCars and Lynn as well. And the question is, what are the main challenges when holding up site acquisition? Are they the ESB network connection issues or planning related? So just to clarify, John Byrne and Lynn aren't ESB networks, they're ESB eCars. So Andreas, if you'd like to give us a brief answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've got the ambition and private investment to do this and launch new sites, but by a clear mile, the two biggest hurdles are the land acquisition. So this is making the deal with the landlord. We also purchase as well as lease land. So we're trying to be as open as possible, but this is one. And the second factor is grid connection. And there are other questions that saw coming in around, can we increase the number of chargers in certain locations that we've got? And it's the same, it's grid connection. This is the big hurdle. I even had a question that came in around batteries. Do we use batteries? We're trying. Again, where we have a poor grid connection, we might use a battery in the short term to help us to extend the number of chargers. But that is reliant on the DNO enabling us to connect that battery. We've got an example in Beaconsfield in England where we've actually got a battery on site. DNO won't allow us to connect it to the grid at the moment. So there's some work that has to be done from a policy perspective as well as the technical aspects.
Thank you, Andreas. John, similar question to you, and I'm presuming it's the same answers.
Yeah, it's broadly similar. Yeah, the suitability of a site and also possibly the ease of getting that onto the ESB network site, ESB network.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you, John. I'll hand over to Roland for the next question.
All right. Well, we have a few questions here. So maybe if you can bring up Chris from EasyGo. Let me just put the question on here. Surely EasyGo could really gain significant market share if they just installed many high-speed chargers on motorway service networks. So that should be their business model and blow eCars out if it's pretty pathetic rollout. We highlighted this because I think it's just to see what else EasyGo could do and add to our fast expanding network. So just your thoughts on that, Chris.
Yeah. So I suppose we looked at our business model. We looked at the bank balance and see what we could afford. The high power charging stations, they're very, very expensive. And I suppose the most expensive part of it is the whole grid connection. Grid connection is very, very expensive, and having the power available. I suppose a bit like having, if you look at your house, if you have electricity connected to your house, you still have to pay every month, whether you're using it or not. And you pay for the size of the connection that's coming in. It's the very same for an electrical connection onto the grid. We've looked at various models. We've priced various models as to what would work, what wouldn't work. Ireland is very cheap at the moment for public charging. The prices are close enough to the lowest in Europe. Which doesn't facilitate a private company in trying to raise, trying to fund and pay for the charging. It is very cheap to charge at fast charging at the moment in Ireland. I suppose the other reason with grid connections, even with a 50 kilowatt charge point, it's still very expensive to get a grid connection. and to pay to have that. Just from the initial, I suppose, rollouts that we've done and initial testing that we have done, we can get a 49 kVA grid connection. If we were to go above 49 kVA, it's going to cost twice as much for the grid connection. And then it just explodes exponentially from there. So it's one of the reasons we focused on the 50 kVA, solely because we can get the chargers out there a lot faster. We can find sites easier that are capable of having 50 kVA. We found some hotels, for instance, that have had that much capability by raising their MIC, but at least the power coming into the building was capable of it. A lot of other times we've applied for grid connections themselves, but that's a serious problem at the moment. We'd love to run with hubs, absolutely love to run with hubs, but are they viable at the moment for a piece of equipment to sit there not being used? It's great to have if we could. We'd love to have it, but unfortunately not viable at the moment.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that, Chris. Derek, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. John, I'm going to bring you in if that's okay. We've got a question from Brian Dowling, and it's in relation to, do e-cars do monitoring on charge points in terms of usage and availability? Some have been non-functioning for quite some time. I think, was it a situation where people had to report them a number of times before the engineers, or is there an ongoing maintenance? Just an upkeep question, if that's okay, John.
So yeah, we do. Obviously, we monitor every single one of the chargers, both from a reliability perspective and from a comms uptime perspective. Our reliability rate on a sort of a monthly basis is tracked across the sort of 22 kilowatt to 50s and then the high power charging network, and it's all above 98.5%. So we try to get as close to always on. We are aware that there are a couple of spots where we have difficulties in trying to, first of all, diagnose what the particular issue is. And because we buy certain batches of equipment, where one fails, sometimes we're dealing with type faults. I am aware we have some issues around the AC43. So the sort of fast element of the charger works in some cases. The AC43 sometimes does not. We try to get up to all of the any fault that's reported to us, we try to get to as quick as possible. We've recently signed, actually only in the last 8 to 10 working days, we signed a new maintenance contract with a third-party provider that has much more stringent SLAs in terms of getting out to site to get any sort of chargers fixed. But thankfully the number is low, the reliability has improved no end since the investment. But look, it's an everlasting issue of ours. We monitor, we track, and we try and fix as quick as we can. I'd encourage everyone, just obviously who's on the call, to report anything at all, because you know the technology is great, but we have a fabulous call center, and we do rely on that a lot to get any sort of third-party feedback about around issues as well there.
Thank you, John. Another question for you while I have you, in relation to the brand new DC units on Sir John Rogerson's Quay in Dublin. Will it be ESB, or do you contact DCC to get the bays painted green? Because icing and people parking in those spots along the quays seems to be a bit of an issue. Who will really be driving the greening of those spots?
Yeah. This is a sort of a convoluted and a complex case, actually, the one you've picked. The situation as it stands is they're going to be painted this week. They're going to be painted by ourselves, but DCC, Dublin City Council, actually have to go through a very formal process around the changing of parking spaces, which involves the guards, believe it or not, for enforcement. So under the sort of terms of the agreement, we are going to actually paint it this coming week. And obviously then the regular enforcement comes on top of that. We're seeing great usage on that site actually at the minute already, but we are aware that there is cases of sort of icing, particularly during the working, the 9 to 5 working hours, and we're trying to eliminate that.
Thank you, John. It wouldn't be like Ireland if it wasn't convoluted. I really appreciate your answers.
Okay, so thank you so much, John. If it's okay, we can bring Andreas back. I know there's been quite a number of questions on the, during your presentation, you shared a bit about sites that are coming up. So would you mind giving us a little bit more insights into what's being planned? I know that the audience is quite interested in knowing more about it.
Yeah, new locations. So just a lead into that, and I know it was covered in one of the other presentations. The more or less when we explore a new site, just being able to launch that site is more or less a 12-month time frame, just so the audience can appreciate how long it takes from the discussions with the landlord or the seller of the land, time you go through planning. Most of that period is the power and the power connection. So just so people can understand how long it takes. It can be 12 months, sometimes even more. So it's not through want of trying in that sense. And in terms of the power, a 12 charger hub for ours is 2,500 kVA. It's the amount of connection you have, the power connection to the grid. A typical home would be around 25 kVA. So it's equivalent of 100 homes. So people can start to appreciate how much power it is that we actually have to request from the grid if we open a 12 charger hub of ours. So it does take some time, but please bear with us. But we had some questions. I had some specifics. Can we have some sites in Cork and Belfast? So the answer is yes. In Northern Ireland, expect to see some things coming around Derry, Belfast, in the Republic, on the N4, Carrick on Shannon, Galway, around Dublin, in Cork in the south, and then also around the Waterford area. So a little bit more insight, and of course, as with the others, if people have ideas or suggestions on locations, feel free to reach out to me, and if we can make that happen, then we will do.
Great, thank you so much, Andreas. One question: anything planned between I said at the end, what's it called, Junction 14 and Limerick? Because I think that's where we are a little bit spotty still with regards to the fast charge networks. And of course, it's not only a question to you, Andreas, of course, also for EasyGo and for e-cars. I know Tesla is already there in Bird Hill. We have, of course, the Apple Green in Bird Hill as well, but I think everywhere else it's a little bit spotty.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we are specifically focused on the intercity travel. So the whole eco system of EV charging, it needs different types of suppliers to support that. So you have home and workplace, which of course we know, and they have destination charging. As I said before, we focus specifically on larger hub sites, space between 80 to 120 kilometers between each site. So we're trying to best we can scope that out, so it just becomes a strategic road network through the country. But as I said, if people have suggestions, have got specific sites that they think might work, then of course feel free to reach out to me, and if we can, if it makes sense, we can make it work at our end, then we will.
Great, thank you so much, Andreas.
Thank you, Andreas. Andreas and John and Chris, I'll be in touch with you regarding corporate membership, as this is a voluntary organisation representing Irish EV drivers. Don't be scared when you see a nice corporate membership email coming into your inbox early this week. Folks, we've ran over a couple of minutes, but if you'd like to stay on, please do so. We can have a conversation ourselves. For our speakers, it is a Saturday. We really do value your time. So we'd like to thank Andreas and John and Chris and Simon as well, everybody that spoke this afternoon. If you have to go, we appreciate it, but we will stay on for another couple of minutes just to have a conversation about other topics or stuff that we've talked about today. But please, thanks for your time, everybody. We really do appreciate it. But Roland, what would be the next question that we've got coming on? We've started some questions, and thanks to the person that liked us on our Facebook stream. Make sure that you're liking and sharing and subscribing. I'm also going to bring back in the chairperson of Irish EV Owners for Simon. Simon, we didn't get a chance to cover all of your presentation, but I think it's something that we'll do on the channel further down the line. We might do this webinar on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's a lot of information there, and I try to fly through it. But yeah, there's like you could spend 10 minutes or more on each of those topics at least. So yeah, I'm always happy to take more questions on that. I think the bit where probably I would like to say a bit more is around the etiquette, and yeah, just to kind of run through some of the main topics on that, I suppose, for people that aren't familiar. Yeah, I said already about, a charging bay is a charging bay, not a parking spot. And I guess that's rule number one. I guess if there's another rule number one, it's about respecting each other and the equipment. We've heard from all the suppliers, the main network operators here today. They've made huge investment in the equipment, especially the rapid charging equipment, and it costs a huge amount of money to replace cables and things like that if they're left lying around on the floor. So please always pick up the plugs and put them back in the holsters when you're finished, because it can save money, which can be put into other sites, but it can also save things being down. So that's a really important point as well. And I think probably, yeah, especially around the rapid charging, and this is something that, you know, especially for new owners, typically it's a good idea to stay around your car, or at least close by to it when you're rapid charging. Obviously it's there for a quick stop and a quick boost, typically 45 minutes or less, and indeed on some of the networks you'll get an overstay fee after 45 minutes. So if you can't stay with the car, please try and leave a note, or as I mentioned earlier, there's an app called Needs to Charge where you can basically put in your registration and your contact number. So if someone comes along and sees your car there and wonders how long you're going to be, they can contact you easily without you leaving any personal information through the app itself. So that's a very handy one as well. And I think as well as we get more and more cars on the network, there's always a discussion and a very divided sort of opinion amongst owners around plug-in hybrids and whether they should be allowed to use the local the public charging facilities. And I think at the moment there are no restrictions to say that you can't, but I think if you're a PHEV owner, it's just using a bit of common sense, and you know, we want to see people charging their PHEVs as much as possible to get the best out of them, but we also want to make sure that BEVs can charge when they need to. So by all means, if you're a PHEV, use the charger, but if it looks like you're blocking a BEV, then maybe have a polite conversation and see what you can figure out.
I won't bring up Colin Whelan's comments about BEVs and PHEVs. We have Chris from EasyGo and John still on. I might bring John back in if that's okay. And also Chris, with regards to wireless charging, we're looking for innovations within the space. Somebody's talked about wireless charging. Sometimes we can't even get chargers in and people are looking for wireless charging, and also the capability of having maybe Wi-Fi powered through the charger, so when you are charging you could tap into the Wi-Fi, and making the charging experience safer, better lit, covered. These are all things that we hear, I'm sure, every week, every month. Obviously there's a cost to all these things, but I think users would usually be able to, would prefer these kind of conveniences. John, I'll come to you first.
Thank you, Derek. Wireless, I will start sort of there. Really, we'll have to take a sort of the initiative from the car manufacturers there. We did quite a number ago, it's maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had a wireless Nissan Leaf, as I remember, set up to charge with a mat under the road. So we did a bit of trialing a number of years ago, but certainly it's all about tethered for now, and we haven't seen a whole lot of momentum from the EV manufacturers towards wireless. On the Wi-Fi, I think you could see that actually prior to wireless. Certainly it is a feature that some of the charger manufacturers are offering. We tend to buy our chargers in batches. I'm sure everyone on this call has heard about the shortage of chips, from China affecting EVs. It also affects the sort of chargers. We've seen the duration of deliveries extend, particularly over in GB. Some of the charger manufacturers are now quoting us sort of 32 weeks, but typically it's a lot kind of shorter than that, thankfully. But we order the chargers in batches, depending on our pipeline. I would see the inclusion of Wi-Fi enablement in future batches. I don't see it as an immediate piece. And then finally, the issue of safety of lighting, etc., is really it's I guess over the tragic events over the last 3 weeks, we've seen a huge amount of social media traffic. I know even in GB, I had to appear before a number of MPs on the issue, and there's been a number of sort of articles written about it as well. The reality, I guess, is in more and more sort of owners are happy to see EV charging coming to the fore, you know what I mean, be more prominent, I guess, on their sites, but that wasn't always the case. So where we can we're trying to make our sites as well lit and as prominent as possible, but we certainly have new regimes for all of our new sort of smaller and larger hub sites. Typically they are more prominent because people want them to be in a prominent position, and that inherently makes them safer. But we do have, we know we have some issues around lighting, etc., and we're working to improve that and accessibility actually right across the network.
Thank you, John. Chris?
Yeah, I suppose something similar to what John had been saying. I know part of the criteria when we're looking at sites, and we've turned down sites in the past solely because they were around the corner from the building and they were in the car park spaces that were furthest away from the building people may have been going into, or the business people have maybe been going into. So we treat that with priority when we are looking at particular sites as well. So it's not just power availability. We also look to see if there's something for people to do. And even that can be as simple as have a cup of coffee. So I think that's very, very important. It's one of the reasons we look at the supermarkets, we look at the well-lit car parks, we look at the shopping centres, and we also look at hotels, because they tend to put them fairly prominently front and centre in a place where is quite secure for people to be and people to stay. As regards covers on charge points, absolutely is a key point, I suppose, when you're living in rainy Ireland. We've seen some very innovative ideas across Europe in other countries, and we have actually priced them in the past. A lot of our charge points are sold into private operators, so and we have offered some of these options for people to put covers on them. Again, it's probably down to price at the minute as to getting them installed and getting a canopy in it. I don't know if you've one of those that built a pergola at the back of your house in the lockdown, but lovely to have a few of those sitting over charge points. But they're, it's a lovely add-on to have, and something that I think should be looked at. But I think even with bringing in covers like that, we also got to look at the planning permission as well on that, and the ease of making it happen for charge points, because it's one thing having charge points of a certain size exempt from planning to be able to go through other channels to be fitted. You're opening a completely different ball or a complete different mess when you're looking for planning for a canopy or cover to go over it. So that would need to be addressed at a more senior level of government too.
Thank you, Chris. Simon, you'd like to come in there?
Yeah, just quickly on the personal safety point, and I think this is obviously something, as others have said, has really come to the fore in the last few weeks, and we need to take a really sort of strong look at how things are realistically. With that in mind, there's a lady in the UK who's very big in the EV community called Kate Tyrrell. She actually works for Ionity, who developed the Zappi charger, and she just started a campaign called Charge Safe. You can look at their website, chargesafe.uk, I think it is. So basically what they're planning to do, primarily in the UK, but I've also approached them about doing it in Ireland as well, is basically going around and surveying the network and flagging up locations where things need to improve. So that's something that we're going to be engaging with them on, and we take personal safety for everyone, but in particular women, very seriously. So hopefully that's something we can make some progress on, even if it's in the early stages, just flagging where there might be problems, but hopefully in time working with the charge network operators to get that improved.
Thank you, Simon. I'm going to wrap up on my side, Roland. I'd like to say thanks to everybody from me. Also, all the questions coming in. If you're looking for more chargers, get onto your county councillors, get onto your TDs, get onto your destination chargers, get onto your petrol forecourts, suppliers, etc., and let them know that you have an EV or you're getting an EV and you want to charge at their location, and then they'll get on to John, or they'll get on to Chris, or they'll get on to Tesla or Ionity, whoever it may be. So if we want it, we have to make noise about it, and in a good way, in a proactive way. There's no point crying about it. That's all I'll say about it. Roland, I'll hand over to you to wrap up.
Yeah, so, and of course, if you feel passionate about this topic and you want to contribute, we actually have our AGM coming up in April. We are looking for new members to contribute to everything that we're doing here. I mean, it's ultimately a voluntary activity by everyone involved. And of course, we can't make this happen without passionate people that want to help everyone to jump onto the EV journey, as well as to work with all the suppliers to get the right network options in place and get the right platforms provided. So I really like to thank here all the speakers. I know Andreas had already signed off. Of course, John Byrne from eCars, John Casey from the Tesla owners community in Ireland, and of course Chris Kelly from EasyGo, and our own Simon to give us updates, and of course everyone else that has been contributing here on the live streams to give us some pointers, some comments, and of course we all our suppliers here will be having another look at that more than likely after the show. But I really appreciate that, and of course partner in crime here, Derek. Thank you so much for teaming up and making this happen. So this is, of course,
Ronan, we better not forget Lynn. Thank Lynn as well from ESB eCars.
Absolutely, yes, Lynn. Yes, absolutely.
We want that gender balance, and we need more women in the association. So thank you,
absolutely.
Lynn, for helping us balance that out.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I wish you all a great Saturday and a great weekend. And for those that have already started to watch the rugby, hopefully we will get the results that we want after this. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Roland. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.